Welcome back, everybody. We've got one of our most frequently requested guests back on the podcast, Waters Above. Welcome back to the channel. It's been a long time since we talked. I figured it'd be a good time to check in. You were very prescient about things in the past in terms of where they were headed. And I didn't want to believe the turmoil we were in for multiple years now. But hopefully, maybe the Oracle can give us some good news here. But how you been, man?
I'm doing better every day, man, and I appreciate you reaching out to me. And it really means a lot to me that your community was seeking us to reconnect. That really means a lot.
Yeah, in the comments, I mean, your name comes up more than anyone else. So,
Wow, that really means a lot. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to reconnecting, man. It's been a minute. I don't remember the last time we talked. It must have been sometime. Was it at least in Q1 of last year, or?
it was at least a year ago. I think it was more than a year ago. I remember the prices were near the all-time low, and I was of the mentality of how much worse can it get. You had presciently said, well, it can stay bad for a long time. And I kind of had a gulp and come to Jesus moment there. But we did pump. We did pump 5 or 6 or 7x in late 2024, which gave everybody hope again. And then, of course, that hope was obliterated by this brutal altcoin bear market, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Multi-year geopolitical unrest, you name it. They're not lowering the interest rates. The macro conditions are flippy floppy, whatever Trump decides to say and spook the markets with. But you look at technicals, right? So for people that don't know you, you're like a technical analyst, and you have a very interesting way of charting.
Yeah, I definitely have my own take on things. I kind of design my own decoding system that goes along with my technical analysis. So it's not just purely TA. And I also try to not get too lost in the sauce with TA. It's not that it's like a place where you shouldn't continue to expand your knowledge set, but it does have its kind of like where it gets a little too deep and it doesn't really provide much value at some point. So I try to keep my TA pretty like utility based. I try to not go too complicated with things. And the same with my decoding system, although that could be perceived as complicated for a lot of people if they haven't heard of some of the elements that I use, like astrology or gematria, numerology, etc. But yeah, I have like a pretty fine combo of both, and I feel it's given me an edge, but it's also allowed me to see things differently on the world stage. And as your audience and everyone's aware, like the people who run the world definitely try to use these geopolitical events or stuff that's happening on the world stage to give us a quote unquote reason as to why the price action is happening the way it does. So you'll hear TA guys say, like, show me the charts, I'll show you the news kind of vibe. And there's truth to that in a lot of ways. But it's about, well, what gets you to figure out how those events will happen way in advance, and then that way you don't really even need to know how to your way around the chart as much. You can start making, I don't want to call them predictions, but you could start like assessing how the flavor of the month or quarter or year ahead will be like based on that decoding system. So I hope that gives a good summary of where things are at. And every year, by the way, I come out with a decode. It's a Chinese zodiac decode, so it's utilizing their system, but I come out with a decode every year, which lays out everything in the year ahead. And I make a presentation. I go through everything for how I'm feeling about the energies on the world stage, but I do talk about world events. So it's not just markets. And then I, of course, wrap it all together of how those events could be impacting markets.
Yeah, well, there's probably a lot to talk about with the new year of the fire horse. The year of the snake just ended in February. There's a new moon, I think, yesterday. And so, what is your take in general on the grand scheme here?
I mean, in general, I think we have kind of like a 2019 summer potential ahead of us. And what I mean by that, if you want me to share my chart, I can, of course.
Please. Yeah, I'll pull it up.
Great. This way that they can just see the visuals and then I don't have to sit here talking.
There we go.
Great. So you can see my chart?
Yep.
Awesome. So this is a little bit of this might be a first for some of your community, but this is my kind of claim to fame chart. This chart is very powerful because it's breaking down something most people have never heard of. It's not talking about the 4-year cycle or the halving or any of that stuff. the business cycle, none of that. It's talking about solar and lunar cycles, which I figured out are the reason why Bitcoin has its bull runs ending at certain periods of time and also why its bear markets conclude at certain periods of time. And this is a very powerful chart. I'm not going to go too deep into it right now unless you'd like me to later, but just to answer the question immediately of like where I think we're at, I think this is ahead of us, and I know it seems very hopium vibes, but it has to do with the speed of which we fell to the current lows, and then also how like beaten and bruised alts are. So I think this type of move is ahead of us, where we just have so much doom and gloom and so much negativity on the world stage. Like there's absolutely like you wake up every single day, right? And it's just something new. It's like people are lining up to get gas in Thailand. It's like it's desensitizing us in a lot of ways, even though it's real shit. Like it's real stuff that's really happening. It's not a lie, like it's actually impacting people's lives. It's making travel hectic. Plans of the future are getting like more uncertain every day. And this war narrative, it's only continuing to escalate, it seems. So while it's so horrible over the past 60 days regarding news and just the way that they're showing us or the way that they're making us feel essentially to make it simple, I think the price action is pretty damn strong in Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin's holding up strong and a lot of alts are starting to also seemingly, get exhausted regarding the sell pressure, that tells me that something will release that pressure, and it will probably be the complete opposite of what we experienced from the end of Q4 into, like, February. So I don't think it's gonna be, it won't look so drastic like this because this was, let's just say this was a much bigger loss that Bitcoin experienced. We're looking at an 84% loss, while the recent one was only like 56% or so. Okay, yeah, so 52%. So it'll just look like Bitcoin's coming up to like 100, maybe 98, maybe 99, for example. But that move right there is probably also going to end like it did in 2019, where it does this. I'm not saying we'll have the C19 crash, but I'm saying it's going to do something like this. And you see the pivot point of where this correction stopped right on a solar eclipse. Yes, we had this fuckery in the middle, but that was a leverage reset. That was a reset to get this to occur, right? So the eclipses are pivot points, and I personally feel like this type of move is definitely possible. It will catch a lot of people off guard. I think even the recent move that we saw for Bitcoin caught a lot of people off guard, but we're correcting now. I could explain why we're correcting right now if you want, but I don't want to go into many
Please.
different. Okay. Yeah, I mean, just the really, really quick reason to help people understand my system a little bit more is currently Mercury is retrograde, and there's a relationship between the Bitcoin chart and Mercury retrograde. The amazing thing about this is we typically have 3 to 4 Mercury retrogrades per year, so we have a ton of data, okay? So this is not just, like, pulling something out of my ass and trying to convince people. What happens most time during Mercury retrograde is wherever Bitcoin opened on the first day of Mercury retrograde, Bitcoin heads back to on the last day of Mercury retrograde. That would go in either direction. So if we pump up, we'll return back. If we correct, we'll recover back. So there's so many examples of these sideways Mercury retrogrades. You see right here, we have this close around 118K. We have a correction, but then we finish off right around 118K again. Here, same story. We are It's funny actually, this one, because we had a lot of things going on. I know it looks a little messy, but I know where this red box starts. It starts right here at around 83K. And right there, you'll see we literally closed at 83K. We had all this mess in between. Doesn't matter. And I could go on and on about this. It would take too much time, but essentially 70% of the time during Mercury retrograde, we trade sideways. So whatever the hell is going on during the sideways moment, you just get your narratives, you get all the stuff that makes you feel like, whatever they want you to feel. But ultimately, it's Mercury retrograde that kind of locks us in and makes things confusing makes things they're not decision oriented. It's like it could go either way. And you might have heard in your own life when people talk about basic astrology, they talk about Mercury retrograde and they blame Mercury retrograde for why certain things are happening. It's kind of a meme, and in many ways
It is.
it's definitely a meme. I wouldn't tell people like go be a shitty person because it's Mercury retrograde. Like that's nonsense. Your life's probably better before you learn about this stuff. But for investors and traders and people that want to learn more about why the market does what it does, this is a fascinating find where I could tell you that not 100% of the time. That's impossible. There's no 100% of the time in existence with not even with weather, right? Like you could have a whole winter go by and not one day of snow sometimes. That's just life. But the point that I'm getting to is 70% of the time is pretty amazing, especially with the most volatile asset in existence, right? So it's an amazing thing, and we're coming right back to where we were around at the open. And that just tells me that, like, yeah, it's not this war that matters. It's none of the, it's not oil. It's not what gold is doing right now. There's something else that's moving each independent basket of assets. So Bitcoin is ran by this specific system, and then luckily enough, Bitcoin runs the rest of the other systems, and then it just gets more complicated, et cetera, et cetera. I think Hex and the Hex community, you guys have probably learned that there's a lot now that has changed over the past like maybe 2 or 3 years in particular since the end of that euphoria run we had in 2021. And it's difficult to like for me to pinpoint the exact thing that's tied to Hex besides utilizing mythology. And we probably talked about that very early on in our very early on when you were introducing me to more about what the Hex ecosystem is all about and Richard Hart. And I was just quickly going through like the symbolism of the hexagon and how that's a pattern tied to Saturn. That's also a pattern that's used quite often in finance. So that's tied back to time. Unfortunately, we've been in a time frame where these Saturnian based things are kind of, I don't want to say dying, but they're going through transformation because we're moving into an Aquarian age. We're moving into a different kind of vibe on the world stage. And I'm not entirely sure if Hex's product is it still makes sense in the future as much as maybe some other shiny objects that the crypto communities are more latched onto, for example. Um, Not throwing any shots, it's just again, it's an attention economy. And when that project was doing its best was when the attention was going to Richard, right? And now that it's going away, and I felt it going away back at the times of our last calls, I was able to go, "Oh, okay, that worries me a little bit." Because we've even recently seen this with ETH, right? Where Vitalik started de-risking some ETH, and now everyone's, getting weird about Ethereum. So it's when it's attached onto one dude, even though there's a whole team of people working on it, the populace and the communities, like they get very caught up in that.
That is true. It's been called a cult for a reason. A lot of people give way too much power, in my opinion, to Richard Hart being some ultimate perfect human, never ever makes mistakes, has a master plan for everything. I think the reality with Hex is that it just went up so high that just market dynamics mean that so many people made so much money that they've got a lot of sell pressure. And then with PulseChain and PulseX very simply launching at the top of a euphoria phase, people were credited with lots of Pulse and PulseX from those sacrifice phases, which is another symbolic word, I guess we can get into, sacrifice, right? The
Mm.
meme was that, Richard convinces you to lock up Hex for 15 years, and then the Hex that you didn't lock up, he convinced it to give it right back to him in the sacrifice phases for PulseChain. Now, obviously, that's not true for everybody, including myself. Like I was able to profit by laddering and being pretty level-headed through it all, not just aping everything in at the top and playing it a little strategically, as a lot of people did. But the sad reality is that people have so much sell pressure because of the raise being near the top of euphoria, and also just Hex simply going up so much. But now, I don't know if you're aware, there's a new project in the ecosystem. In terms of the hexagon meme, this is actually the first logo that's not hexagon shaped at all. It's a shield logo, and it's called ProveX.com. And this coin launched 3 days ago.
Can you show
which
me
kind
the
of was
symbolism?
a bit of a, sorry?
Can you show me the symbolism?
Well, yeah, one second. I'll show you the chart because this could have been somewhat of a vibe shift in terms of the crypto community, the Richard Hart PulseChain, PulseX community. This is a new project that it aims to decentralize exchanges. So it's a peer-to-peer on and off ramp where people can buy and sell crypto without any middlemen and totally bypass exchanges and KYC in the ethos of real cypherpunk values. Share this real quick. There we go. This PRVX token, I know I'm on the hourly charts, and it doesn't make much sense to look at anything yet technically, because as you can see, we've only got 5 days of history, but we've had
a very, very
everybody,
typical fresh chart.
yeah, a lot of hype at the beginning, and again, it's day 4, but it's a finite pie with altcoins because there's no new people coming in. It's one big poker table, zero-sum game as far as we've been concerned for the last 2 or 3 years. Even the Trump meme coin couldn't bring in anybody new other than like 1% of new buyers. And so it's been one big meme coin rotation, everyone trying to take each other's money. And like I said, zero-sum game. And we've seen that with ProveX too. Although the PulseChain community is a lot larger than any other community I'm aware of in terms of being organic. It's got thousands of people, very high engagement on social media, which makes it an anomaly in my opinion. It is kind of a very slowly growing amoeba right now, and it's not getting that retail mania back anytime lately in the past couple of years. So that's what we're all trying to hope for. That's why we're all trying to keep the dream alive for when retail and liquidity does flow back. But you could look at this chart kind of like the latest rotation. Everyone, rotated some of their pulse into ProveX, and this coin is uniquely tied to stable coins and not tied to the base layer token, which is Pulse. Pulse is like PLS is to PulseChain what ETH is to Ethereum, just the gas token, right? PulseChain's a network, Ethereum's a network, Bitcoin's a network. But this coin was liquidity bonded to stables and Ethereum, and actually not liquidity bonded to Pulse, which seemed to be strategic on that end because everyone's tired of, getting dragged down with all the sell pressure from the core PulseChain tokens.
Right.
But I don't know if you can make anything out of this right now. It's pretty early.
Let me, I think I found the chart. Let me try to pull it up. But yeah, I don't want to be the Grim Reaper. I probably felt like that in the last time we talked, but like I really don't.
Well, it was real though. It was real.
Yeah. You should know me by now that like I'm not saying shit to just get people to like me. I'm not saying stuff to get people to agree with me. Like if I get asked questions, I believe we should be honorable and tell our truth, and we shouldn't do it for clicks or likes or people to like. So I've been through it. I've been through it a lot, especially with the XRP community, because I got a bad taste in my mouth after Trump won. When not because of Trump necessarily, but because of my feelings about politics and governments in general, like, and how when Trump won, and I really hope people don't take this the wrong way. So like if you're already viscerally reacting and listening to this, just relax, okay? Like deep breaths. I don't give a fuck about politics. I think I think it's all a scam, okay? So no matter what direction we head in, I think it's a scam. And now I think we're looking at the scam, right? Like we're literally watching the scam unfold. Everything.
Well, Trump has really lifted the veil on a lot of. He's just playing the same game that every other politician has been playing, but he's making it really obvious for people that need to have their eyelids kind of forced open.
Yeah, like I mean, we went from talking about. I remember the peace talk stuff, and I was like, guys, but every decode I've done about the year of the snake points out that the United States has gotten involved in war or conflict in the year of the snake. I would like it was like when I talked to you about HEX or whatever. It's like I would like it to not be that way. Trust me. I would like to show up and give you roses and kiss you on the forehead and tuck you in. But that's not reality. I have to like dump a cold bucket of water on you at 5 a.m. and then you'll see it for what it is. So like I'm very neutral in life, and I think that's what's allowed me to help people the most, like as an entrepreneur and etc. So moving forward and getting through the idea without talking about Trump too much, it was just when he won, I saw this shift, particularly in the XRP community, because their political bias is more leaning towards that anyways. And that worried me that they were like instantaneously turning the man into the savior. Because remember at the time, it was doing very well. Like from the day he won, pretty much XRP, HBAR, XLM, like a lot of the projects in that ecosystem, in that little community, they took off, right? Where we did not see things like Zcash or Monero take off. Those took off at their own separate time, right? So that is like part of my holistic thought here of where we're at in the cycle, because it's been going in stages, right? We didn't have this unified alt season that we had in 2021, for example. So I got very worried about the XRP community at that time because I was like, guys, you need to realize like what it's this man's job to do for the next 4 years. Like we will be pushed into a holy war. We will be pushed into insane hyperinflation across the board. Like, you think he's promising you that your egg prices are gonna go down because 'cause you're retarded. Like, literally, like, I don't know how else to say it. I just have to be real with everyone,
Well,
like, you
the
have
one
to.
silver lining is that at least regulatorily, the Hexicans, right? The Hex community was all a lot of the YouTubers were persecuted by the previous SEC, and so to have a much more lenient crypto regulatory environment has been good. I mean, it's one good thing, you know. Not everything has been great, but at least there's
Has it
not
been
fear
good,
of
though?
going to jail as much.
But has it been good? Like, because when I look at the Clarity Act and when I study all the things that are, like, potentially going to unfold with that, I think it's more of this I think it's worse. I think the moment government and institutions started to show their hand and say that they are for sure in this game was the moment it went to shit. Will it get better? Of course, because there needs to be regulation while it scales. Like there needs to be this wild, wild west will eventually come to a conclusion. But I feel like why do we go from the world prior where we were interested in crypto and blockchain technology because it was money for the people? It was like a fuck you to the system.
Hmm.
Now we're like BlackRock, please daddy pump my bags. Please Trump and government, please pump my bags. And that's where I have an issue with it because I'm like, you guys aren't consistent. I only trust people who are consistent.
Yeah.
If
Well,
you
that
if you
mentality is
continue to preach one thing and then you shift up just because you want to make money, that means you're more obsessed with making money than you are with with freedom and sovereignty and the betterment of of the species and the evolution, you know? So, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about him because he's just the figurehead of the protocol. Like he's not as important as people think he is, but he's the perfect guy to put in that position to make the agenda unfold. And it has gone perfectly according to script.
Oh, I agree. A lot of crypto has lost the plot in terms of the cypherpunk way. I mean, that's one thing PulseChain has stuck to is that decentralization matters, not your keys, not your coins, is the most important part of crypto is taking your power back and decoupling from the economic system and building a new one, a parallel financial ecosystem. However, it's you still have to admit that the elites are in control, and so it's pretty sad to see everybody, you know, sucking Michael Saylor off to pump their bags in
Exactly.
Bitcoin because you're giving your power away to the same middlemen that crypto was invented to get rid of. But
And that
at the
was his
same time, it's
purpose,
like,
by the way.
yeah, yeah, but they're the only one. The elites, the BlackRocks, and the ETFs are the only people with enough money to move Bitcoin up anymore. And so, Pulse Chain is kind of a fresh start in that sense, or at least that's how it's pitched. Along with Ethereum, which is kind of sold out in some ways, but I still respect Vitalik for prioritizing things like privacy and things that are anti-globalist. You know, so far he's been good to Ethereum.
Yeah, I mean, I question like there's so much to this conversation because like also I think promoting mnemonic warfare isn't really best for the species, even though you also promote privacy. So like getting like all hard on Shiba Inu, like is that really like gonna change the world? I just don't know. Like I think like at the same time, the idea of like what you said with the cyberpunk stuff and all of that, like Yeah, but like the same thing with Richard Hart doing his podcast with like 5 Louis Vuitton bags behind him. You know, it's like it's really conflicting. And I get the point of it all, but like it gets super, super conflicting when we have like one way we talk and then we have another way we show ourselves. And that's what that was why I was cautious. This is why I was cautious on Trump. This is why I'm cautious about any of this stuff. This is why when Michael Saylor started to get famous, I was cautious on him. Because I
A lot of
understand
that.
like when something starts to get a little too good to be true and it feels so positive, that's a really good moment as a man, like as an adult, to go like, oh, I remember when my parents did this to me about Santa Claus. It's
Sure.
the same technology.
I see what where you're coming from. A lot of this juxtaposition of doing one thing but also like saying another is you got to get through to normal people, and normal people fall for that flashy stuff. They fall for the brain rot content, and like you said, it's an attention economy. You got to meet them where they're at. Not every normal person, if the goal is to onboard the world into crypto, most people don't even understand the power that crypto offers. And a lot of times when you tell people to hold their own private keys, they're scared of, what if I lose them? What company do I call? What mommy or daddy is going to come protect me? And the whole point is to with great power comes great responsibility, but to instill that in people. I think that's what Richard was going for, is like, look, you care about this dumb Louis Vuitton shit and you're going to watch because I look like a clown, but then I'll hit you with some actual knowledge. And of course people got very conflicted and up in arms. Simultaneously, he was playing kind of embellishing a role for a documentary he was filming. But yeah, that what the two, holding two ideas in your mind that are conflicting at the same time is very hard for people.
1,000,000%. And I think like the thing to wrap this up with is that is the cult concept. Like, I don't know if I told you this in older podcasts, but like I actually studied cults a lot before I got to this Waters Above project, because I was very fascinated with the mind, consciousness, like all the things that deal with like why people fall for stuff. Like, why do people fall? And when I say cult, by the way, I don't mean like people doing yoga and pranayama in like a retreat center or somewhere in the Himalayas. A cult is when you're watching a Yankees game and you're screaming at the television saying, "My team just lost." It's like your team didn't lose. Your fingers are coated in Cheeto dust, and you're at a bar right now, and in Staten Island. Like, you are not a Yankee. You are not a baseball player. You've never.
Yeah, we won. It's like, no, bro, the other dudes won, that you're wearing their last name on your back. It's really it's cuckold behavior.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So I just want to clear up things, because people hear cult and they immediately attach it onto some like guru culture shit, but it's not. It's the
You can't spell
technology of
culture without cult.
right. And it's to summarize it, it's the technology of groupthink overpowering the individual's own framework of like reality. So the reality gets replaced completely by a groupthink, and anytime the individual exposes their own unique perspective on things, the group attacks them. And then when the individual tries to leave, the group will attack them on their departure and tell them that the world outside is scary, right? So that's a simplified version of like what it is. And believe it or not, the people that are cult leaders, one of their main tactics that they utilize is that keeping two completely separate ideas that are conflicting in your mind at all times. That's part of the technology, actually. I'm not saying that Richard Hart is a cult leader. What I'm trying to reveal is that's what kept people in it probably a lot longer than it should have, because I saw the conversations on X between people in the HEX community, and I'm not part of it like hands on. I barely know about the technology, but I know it through you and conversations I've had with Randy Hilarski, which shout out to Randy. So like, yeah, I only know it through that. And I'm actually very grateful that you guys even have wanted to connect with me and, listen to my take on these things. And I suppose it's brought you value. But the thing to wrap it up with is I see the same thing in the XRP community. I see the same thing. So when people in the HEX community come over to my channel and they're like, "Oh, you're glazing XRP." It's like, did you not watch do you watch my videos? Do you listen to me? Like, I'm calling
People
people
want
out
things
on this.
black or white. You know, people
Yeah,
want things very simply, but I do agree that there is culty behavior. And I've always tried to take a level headed approach and say, hey, let's not worship Richard Hart. Let's focus on what these products are and why they're good from a technical standpoint. And yeah, it's cool. Like I would try to explain what Richard was doing, the method to his madness, but you can't help the fact that people want a hero. And some people out there are still
right.
like that. Some people will think that he's a perfect person that can do no wrong, but luckily I think a lot of that is finally drained out and you see a lot more anger, vitriol, a lot more blaming somebody else cuz that's what
Of
these
course.
cults are. I think there are a lot of people that don't want to take personal responsibility. You can preach personal responsibility all day long. I do. And only the people that are open and receptive are going to resonate with that. Other people are going to stay kind of coddled and juvenile and look for someone else to offload their choices onto.
Precisely. Precisely. Yeah, man, let's quickly look at this chart. If you would like me to, I think you wanted me to check out, was it the correct ticker symbol, PRVX?
PRVX is the shiny new object. So if you want to do some Fibonacci's on that, go ahead.
You could confirm that I'm looking at the correct one though, right? Because
This
every
is
time
it.
I
Yeah,
look
this
at
is this is
okay, cool.
definitely yeah.
Every time I look at one of these projects, everyone's like, "You're not looking at the right one." I'm like, "How
Yeah,
many
there's fake
versions
ones
of?"
and all that, but no, you're good.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, this is very quickly you can just see like there's just this huge horizontal trading range over here. This has a lot of potential to return back to. It might be good for it too, just because when you just swipe through all of this stuff into price discovery after a launch, it's very typical that these things can do these fake outs where they go slightly higher, like a bull trap to the upside, or what we would call like a UTAD up thrust after, and then it'll move down probably back to the same cluster where it was previously trading at. But I just want to let people know we're working with no data as you already told us at the beginning. This is like hourly candles, 4 or 5 days of chart history. This is an infant, and it did launch in the very typical fashion that most new projects launch. And that, of course, usually leads to some big correction. Um, once the initial fizzle of excitement, gets, or it's a rug pull. I'm not saying it will be. Usually by day 3, you'll have a rug pull, right? Even sometimes quicker. Like Trump's project was was a slow rug on the day of launch, pretty much. So if this thing has made it to day 5 in crypto, that's like being 100-year-old. If you're in the
Sad
game
but
of rug
true.
pulls. Yeah, yeah, in the game of rug pulls. So that's a confident thing to that at least should increase confidence. And the other thing is this fib that I pulled. It's just returning you back to this level over here. So for those that are newer to TA, you're usually used to seeing fibs be drawn like this, like a more bullish fib pull to get upside targets. My methodology is I usually do this in reverse. Um, this way I get the 1618 or the golden ratio to the bottom, to the downside. And that's a really normal thing to see occur after you have a pump. And let me just quickly see. Okay, this is not much. This isn't much. So unless you got in on the launch candle, this can continue higher for sure. I mean, obviously this isn't the most sophisticated method, but we're looking at a fresh chart with price discovery. So we have no data. These things can go up tens of thousands of percent. I'm not saying this will, but that's the nature of a brand new project, because what's its market cap right now? Do you have any idea?
Well, let me see right here. It's 1.143 million, but a lot of those coins are dormant. This was a sacrifice project, so keep in mind that for all intents and purposes, you could think of it like a pre-sale. So there's early guys with sell pressure, and then there's a 90% dormant address, just like PulseChain and HEX.
Right. Yep. I'm going to
So
switch
the
over to
market cap is
this.
inflated, right? That's what I'm saying.
Yep. So this is the pulse chart, correct? This is the one that
This
I've
is
been
this is
used to
actually
looking at.
HEX. This is actually HEX versus Pulse.
Yep. This is the main chart that you usually look at, right, on this project?
Yeah. So when I'm looking at HEX, I'll look at this chart. Yep.
Right. So this is definitely bad news when you have this breakdown below your support, below the launch level. And this move that we had over here, pretty much aligned with the same time frame where we had alt euphoria. I think you brought it up a little bit earlier as well,
Yeah.
kind of like the lead up into Trump's inauguration. And ever since then, I mean, obviously we know because ever since then it's been just perpetually selling off. But I would assume the timing now, going over a year and into this like 460-day territory, means that we're probably closer to a bottom on this. Also considering
Finally.
it lost 95% of its value. That's very typical with alts, by the way, to see it not like exactly a year on the nose like we've seen with Bitcoin, but like around like this 400 to 500-day mark. Very typical with alts. Now, it doesn't mean that it's the all-time bottom. What could happen, and I know this this might piss some people off, but again, remember, like I've been doing this for some time, so don't get mad at me. But yeah, you could have moves like this, like an automatic rally, and this automatic rally comes back into the cluster of what you've been typically trading into, and then you fold over. And this was when I started my TA. I told you about the summertime of 2019 or June, July 2019. I don't know if this will have the juice and the fruit to make it up that high, but I do see there's potential to retest some of these supports, at least if you were to be conservative. But that's still quite a move, but it's only a good move for people who are buying now, and I would not recommend buying this now. You don't want to buy a chart that's trading like this. No offense, anyone out there, but this has pretty much proven itself that it has no structure, no body, no yeah, it's just it could even only come back up to here and then it could continue going lower and lower and lower. And people say no, that's not possible, but there's so many projects that are actively doing that as we speak. All those gaming tokens from the last cycle that did the same as Hex, by the way. They had similar chart structures to Hex and their fate has been similar to Hex as of right now. You know, things like Sand, for example, Gala. I mean, a lot of those projects all did well all at the same time. And when you tune into their charts, they look just like this. So Hex is not alone. Like lots of projects look like this right now. And one of my things that I say to people, just as words of wisdom and caution, is if you see projects that are trading lower than the C19 crash, then you should probably consider those are losers that will not do anything in the next cycle. So they're best to just cut and like look at other things. And there's so many examples of that. It's pretty mind-blowing actually. There's even like I think Algorand and IOTA are examples where they're literally fucking trading near the C19 crash where Bitcoin was 4K, you know? They did not have price discovery new all-time highs in the recent cycle. They did not even some of them break the 2018 highs. And then people recently got horny over Zcash. Zcash just returned back to the 2018 all-time high. So it's so not impressive actually. It was just a swing trade and very few people are even able to manage the emotions of de-risking on that swing trade because they're like, "Oh, this is the time it's going to go up forever." You feel me? So I think
Yeah.
moving forward, we're going to have to change if we haven't already. We're going to have to like change our investment thesis to align with what I've been so I'll quickly share a theory with you and we could unpack like how you feel about it if you like, but I'll say my quick piece of where I think crypto is at in the long term. Crypto is in the 2008 crash after the dot-com bubble crash. So I think we already had our dot-com bubble crash back in 2022. 2021 was the all-time high for like what was the quote unquote dot-com bubble of crypto. We'll call it the dot-com bubble 2.0. That was your NFTs. That was like everything cycle. You know, we saw shit go up 100,000%. Absolutely useless technologies with no working product, like no dev team behind, like just scams, right? And then you look at those charts today. What are we, 5 full years later? And many of them look like this chart right here. They are lower than where they were in the 2022 bear market or some of the not I know this chart doesn't have enough history, but I could pull up a chart to give an example so that people don't feel like I'm sitting here attacking
Sure.
heck
Well, let's
because
see. Like,
it's
is
definitely
two and
sorry,
a half
brother.
years is that not enough? Like, what at what point for you is it enough history?
Oh, I mean, I'm just saying because I'm talking now about 2022, and this
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
even go
I
back
mean
to.
that
So I wanted to treat it fairly so that people understood my grand theory because I don't have the hex chart, the all-time hex chart, but I know that's substantially lower than the 2020. Yeah, that's like just been perpetually selling off, if that even
sure.
exists anymore. So let
Yeah,
me
the
show
HEX
an.
original launch on Ethereum has a lot more history, but it's going to look even worse than this one. Obviously, for all intents and purposes, you could consider HEX like migrated to a new chain,
Right,
and
right,
that's the chart you just had pulled up. There's another
understood.
one on PulseChain called PLSX, which is
Hmm.
something we could pull up later. But
Sure, yeah.
I'll
If you want to
yeah,
send me the link to that in the chat, the deck screener link, then I could go ahead and I could check it out a little bit later.
yeah.
Um,
1 second.
yep, no worries. So I have a chart on the screen that I think does well for this example. I think so. It's Algorand. This is like a famous like everyone knows Algorand. You've heard of it. We've all heard of it. Whether you invest in it or not is a different story. But what we're looking at here right now, I think, is a perfect example of my thesis about where we are. Note, I think we're in the 2008 crash, where if you were to look at where Apple or Amazon was trading, you would know exactly what I mean. And maybe I'll pull up the Apple chart in a second and kind of show you. But here we have the C19 crash, and you can see Algorand is trading lower. So that would be like if Bitcoin was trading at $2,500. Then we see the biggest bull run it's had since was in what I'm calling the dot-com bubble for crypto. This is when everything did good. Projects with utility and projects that were absolutely useless. Then this is your next cycle high. Like it doesn't even look like anything. It we were higher after the fucking pandemic started. Like that's a problem. And
Yeah,
now we're lower than the 2023. See, this thing continued getting worse. Okay, so my point here is that this is a good example of like a big project that a lot of especially XRP influencers were shilling and they love it and it's like this amazing whatever. I just look at the charts. I don't give a fuck about all this other noise that everyone wants to like brainwash themselves with. Like just look at the chart. If I see weakness, there's weakness. So I look at the C19 crash whenever I do TA as kind of like the can you get back up after being knocked down? And if you weren't able to, then I don't see the point of even bothering in investing in any project that looks like this. Now I get it. There could be a day where somehow, some reason for whatever, like this Christine Lagarde says Algorand in one of her speeches, and then it has a single day where it goes up 1,000%. Sure, that could happen to any project. Why not? Does it matter though in the long term? Doesn't mean it matters long term because it could crash right back down. And we've seen so many times where we've had an isolated pump in a project and then it immediately follows by a 90% correction. So with that being said, I think we're in the final part of the 2008, like the follow up after the 2008 crash, which means Bitcoin might not actually go as low as people think. Because if you look at like the Apple chart, for example, once it got through the dot-com bubble, its crashes started to get less and less and less until it was like only 30 to 40% corrections were considered the Apple bear market. So that's my theory about where
I
we
get the
are.
metaphor. Yeah,
Yep.
it
And
definitely
I
makes sense. Yeah,
so for example, just to show people what I mean, this was your dot-com bubble. This was Bitcoin in 2022 going into 2023. This is Bitcoin recently. It went up to 126K or whatever. This is Bitcoin now. You see, this had a 60% correction. So sure, Bitcoin could go a little bit lower. Then from here, all of its corrections started getting lower than 50%. And that's what I think is the fate of Bitcoin moving forward. It's not because I'm a Bitcoin maxi. It's not because none of that bullshit. I do not fucking care about none of that. All I care about is the overall thesis. Where's the crypto conversation at? And Ethereum, I don't know if I could say the same story about. I feel like my gut wants to say yes. XRP, my gut wants to say yes, but I can't say the same for every other project. So, for example, if you go back to the dot-com bubble, you're all aware, unless you didn't study this, which, by the way, you should. Everyone should. Most of the projects, most of the websites went to zero, right? They were just wiped off the face of this earth. But some of them, it took time. Some of them, it did, like, some of them tried to hold on. Some of them did reach out to venture capitalists and try to get some capital to keep this thing, like, on life support. And it went through 2007. It went through 2008, but then it was when it got to that crash. That was when those companies were finally the guillotine fell. I think we're experiencing that now in a lot of cryptocurrencies. So whatever makes it through this bear market, I would say is pretty resilient and it's ready for the future of where crypto is going, which, by the way, the last thing I'll say, the future of where crypto is going is the future of the entire economy, because we're going to be moving into an economy that is all tokenized. It's already started with the S&P 500 just as of like yesterday. We're moving into a fully tokenized economy on the blockchain. We are going to have agentic AI trading more crypto than humans transact dollars in a very short time. So I'm savvy enough to understand that what Bitcoin will become is more like a silver or gold play. That's all. I'm not saying it is like silver or gold. That's like some Michael Saylor shit. I don't really think it's a store value. I think the way that we speculate on gold, you understand what I mean? The way we speculate on gold is the way that people will speculate on Bitcoin. That is all. It won't be for these huge ROI wins. It'll just be for high net worth individuals to be like, okay, I believe I should park my money here because of the transition that the entire economy is moving in.
Sure. It represents an alternative asset that to
Yeah.
stocks. It's like, crypto, digital gold. Yeah, it's the closest metaphor we got, but I hear you on these metaphors.
One thing I do want to mention out of experience is all of my high net worth clients, they all come to me and they're like, "Hey, Waters, I have this huge cash position. I don't feel good in cash right now." Why are all my high net worth clients like worried about having cash? What do you think?
Well, it's a good sign that assets are going to go up.
So when everyone is worried about holding cash, they're not going to want to park their money in Algorand. By the way, they might not even want to put their money in silver. Why? Because look at the silver chart. It's all over the fucking place. It's just as volatile as an altcoin. Look at this. Like the correction that silver's just experienced is 40%, dude. How much market cap is that?
Yeah.
That's probably
Yeah,
like
I mean, it fell off a cliff
three
just like
times
gold.
the entire market cap of crypto combined.
Yeah, gold is a couple trillion. I think it's some multiple of crypto.
Yeah. So silver and gold are going to continue down for a little bit, and that's going to be a potential rotation. And I do think that rotation will go into things like Bitcoin. And I think we're going to have a repeat of 2019, 2020. And with that repeat, we could have a kind of C19 like Black Swan event in the next 24 months. It's really difficult to predict, but I do think it has to do with the sabbatical cycle. You know, me and you have talked about this in the past, the Shemitah year, and we have one coming up in 2028, and C19 occurred 1 year before that. And that's also a theme with the Great Depression starting. I mean, there's so many fucking examples of there just being like a trigger event and then it either resets the market in either direction. And I think like we're primed for one of those events. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think everyone is predicting it's going to happen this year because of the turmoil that we're currently experiencing. But I don't think it's going to affect markets, or at least crypto, as much as people might be assuming it will, because crypto's the new economy.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about, I guess, going back to your 2001 metaphor and 2008 is that time seems to be compressed and these cycles seem to be fitting into less time nowadays. Am I right on that?
Exactly. It's just a accelerated version of those events.
Yeah. Well, it's good to get people like you on so that people can think more clearly, logically, less emotionally, and get ready for some bounce back recovery. But if that does happen, to maybe mean revert and then continue on for 1 or 2 more rough years. The Shemitah year in 28, is that, refresh my memory, was that a top
Yep.
and bad stuff after?
I think we're gonna have, yeah, like this is gonna be weird to say, but like I think we're gonna go higher. Like I think we're gonna continue up for an uncomfortable amount of time, bro. I'm talking everything because it's like it would be so perfect for them to sucker everyone into thinking we're just gonna crash at any year during the Trump 2.0, just like was April last year, right? Everyone was like, it's over. Like everything bubble's gonna pop. And it's like, nope. Fucking gold, silver, everything went up. Bitcoin went higher literally 30 days later uh after the April 7th lows, right? It literally hit a new all-time high, bro. We even saw
Yeah.
XRP hit a new all-time high in like July. I think Ethereum and XRP hit new all-time highs. Technically, like we're talking, I don't even want to call them real all-time highs because it was probably leverage induced, but let's just say like they did hit higher prices based in US dollars. And
Yeah.
that was at
Inflation
a
adjusted,
time.
maybe not.
Yep, of course. Yeah, of course. I feel the same way about gold and silver. It's like, yeah, sure. You held on to this shit for like 30 years for it to hit a new all-time high, but you have to realize
Yeah.
the inflation. But yeah, just to wrap up the idea on that, it's like I do very much feel that we're gonna have one of those moments every year with this fucking guy. It's April last year with Liberation Day. Remember, we were correcting. This year we're doing the same bullshit. And it's always tied to eclipses. It's always
Mm.
fucking tied to eclipses. Just look at this Purim eclipse that we had. Anyone want to study Purim? It's directly between Iran and fucking Israel. And well, the not Israel necessarily, but the culture and mind state tied onto it. I'm not going to go too deep there, but period, end of story. It was a perfect ritual, just like, and I think you and I might have connected a couple of years back about this, the Yom Kippur War. We're on the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. We had the event in Israel, the October 7th attacks. Oh, how interesting is that? That literally the moment the Jubilee year was over, now they go back to war. When you study what the Jubilee is about, you cannot do war in the Jubilee. So, one of the most prosperous years for the Palestinians was actually during the Jubilee year. And then the moment it was over, I'm not saying it was a great life. I'm not saying it was freedom. Don't get it twisted, but it was a much better reality than the one that started after October 7th of 2023. Nobody could argue that. And then look at what it's
Mm.
become to this day. So from now until the next Shemitah year, they're going to do some crazy shit, bro. And it's because these people who run the world are fucking psychopaths and they do not follow morality. They don't even care about money, by the way. Some people that listen to these things or they listen to me, they think that like the elite like money. They print
And
money,
control
bro.
of money.
They literally print it. Like they
Yeah.
take your taxes, they do whatever they want. They don't care about money. What they care about is pushing us into the new age. And that's what's the more sinister plan that I want people to realize. So right now, like I'm seeing there's a lot of things going on with this guy Jang, people are calling him Professor Jang. He's not a professor, but he's getting very like famous and talking about like the Armageddon concept. And people need to, do you want to talk about this or do you want to pivot and talk about?
I do. Yeah. I'm interested in
Okay.
whatever you have to say, man. So who is this guy? Jiang? I don't think I've heard of him.
Okay, well, he's I mean, I know enough about his backstory to see that he's definitely part of this club of like what we might consider the intellectual dark web 2.0, like the new thinkers that are given platforms for everybody to like think that they're prophets or something. And I'm not trying to be an asshole here, but he's just this guy that he stands in front of a whiteboard and pretends to be like a teacher in front of a classroom that doesn't even exist. And his clips have gone viral because a lot of what he said about this war, these conflicts, have become reality. And people need to understand that this is not new, guys. There was people in 2000 before 9/11 happened that were doing the same shit. There was people in 2006 before the 2008 crisis happened that were doing the same shit. It's called predictive programming. They are paid off by the people who run the world to tell you exactly what they will do, and then they become the man of the hour, and then everyone starts listening to them. Did you remember what happened with this XRP, or what's his name? There was some guy who speaks in tongues, and he predicted that Trump would get shot in the ear, and then he
Wow.
did get shot in the ear. And then his channel went from like him being nobody to like now he has like millions of people following him. And somebody sent me one of his videos to watch, and it's like 1 hour of him speaking in tongues, like glossolalia. It is fucking bizarre. And I'm like, how is this a thing? Because you only need to be right once,
Yeah.
and then everyone just kind of glazes you till the day is over, right? So I'm only bringing up this Jen guy because
How
people
do you
don't
spell that
realize
name?
Jaing, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and one thing I want to teach people really quickly is about the next chapter in our book of reality, because they're using these people right now to make you think that a holy war is going to happen. They want you to think that we're going to move into that kind of reality. And I heard a snippet from Peter Thiel in an interview that he had that was quite viral maybe a year ago. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's this Peter Thiel interview where he's talking about the Antichrist.
Yeah. Oh, I've
Yeah,
seen it. It's
yeah, yeah,
weird.
yeah. So it's not the newer shit. It was from like an interview that he did like maybe last year. And the best part, there's a part of that interview where he actually tells you the truth. He says that there's two versions of reality that like we're basically gonna see. And one will be the Antichrist kind of concept, which is the Armageddon, it's the Mashiach, it's everything that's gonna that we're hearing about with the Zionists. And then there's the other side of the equation, which is like an AI god, which is like humanity will have an AI overlord. Have you heard about this?
I've heard about Rocco's basilisk. Is that similar?
No, I'm not sure about that.
So it's basically, yeah, that there's going to be an AI overlord, and it's kind of Pascal's wager, but for AI. It's like, if you believe, it's a dangerous idea, because if you help Rocco's basilisk, which is the future AGI, exist, then he won't send you into an eternal life of damnation, or he won't create a clone of your brain and torture you forever. But if you doubt him now, then by the time he exists, he's going to remember that, or
Wow.
the AGI will remember in the future. So we're scared of this future event that hasn't happened yet, just because of the idea that's been implanted into our brains.
Right, exactly. So it's along the same framework of like you have either holy war, which is right now, and I think we have to admit the events that have been occurring recently do very much feel that way because we have like, why is Trump getting involved in this? You know, it's very weird. And I think it's creating that like that recoil effect for the people that were supporting this because the 24 hours later, you have straight up real military personnel risking everything to be like, why would I die for Israel? Like, why are we doing this? You know, like it's very conflicting to go from patriot who really believes in like this so-called make America great again meme. And then it shifts now to, well, no, actually it's about like your whole purpose on this earth is to sacrifice your whole purpose, your whole beingness to protect this place. And it's not about the country of the United States of America, right? So it gets political, but this is all part of this like Armageddon kind of holy war concept and how the USA will be sort of used as an instrument in making it all come to fruition, which in many ways World War II was a similar situation, and World War III was, or sorry, World War One was also a similar situation. And funny enough, what those two have in common is the United States entered during the year of the snake. And yes, the year of the snake was last year, but the big trigger event that occurred was Trump ordered the United States military to bomb a Iranian base, a military base. And even though apparently it was like empty and like hasn't been used or whatever, it was still a move, it was a play. And once you start doing that, you're basically showing your hand. And now here we are, right? With this real deal event that's going down. and they're doing it to destabilize all the commodities and everything that people need to live a normal life. And that's all the biblical kind of prophetic revelation vibe shit that you see people talking about when they talk about the coming of yeah, the Messiah, right? So I am very interested in what Peter Thiel said, where he's like, the two directions we go in is either AI God or Antichrist, with the false God that is like religious based, that will make you feel like you're either getting a real Messiah or whatever, but you're not. So yeah, man, it's like a fascinating thing to hear Peter Thiel talk about how there will be a lot of popularity around the Armageddon concept, and it will be because everyone talks about it. And it feels like this Professor Jen guy is like the perfect instrument to get everyone to feel that that's what's really going to happen. But you don't know
I'm trying
enough
to think
about
if
him,
I've
so it's
seen this
kind of,
guy.
I'm
Oh,
surprised
this
you haven't,
guy.
because it's like he's like impossible not to see. Like anywhere you go on the internet, you see
Yeah,
this
yeah,
man.
I saw one of his videos. He was talking about psychology, about like basic psychology principles
Yep.
that most people
Yeah,
get,
game
learn if they
theory
take them.
and
Yeah, yeah, that was the one that I saw, and it's like, oh, this is very basic stuff. But I guess for normal people, maybe it's like eye opening. I don't know what his angle is though.
his angle is that he's seemingly like exposing the he's exposing all of these things that I think we've heard about for a very long time from the truther community, in one way or the other. It's just the 2016 to 17 timeframe, the truther community got hijacked by the QAnon movement. And then
Hmm.
the CIA and like the people at the Pentagon, NSA, etc., they did everything they could to distract the truther community with shit like flat Earth, like like
Thank you for
nonsense
saying
stuff.
that. I've always felt that way too about both QAnon and flat Earth. It's like, and then people
Yeah,
will DM me like, "Hey, bro, you might want to check this out," and it's just like some generic bullshit. And there's actually
yeah,
been a QAnon level of conspiracy evolving within PulseChain itself too, where Richard Hart is essentially the Trump, but it's this. I don't even want to get into it too much, but like everybody thinks that he's somehow going to fix the broken MakerDAO protocol, and there's some master grand plan, and it's very interesting behavior. It's probably more in line with the cult stuff we talked about earlier. But
yeah,
anyway,
sure.
I'll let you continue.
Yeah, no, it's not that like I believe the Earth is a round ball spinning at 1,000 miles per hour with curved water. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I do have my own take on what I think our realm is, but like, I don't waste my fucking prana on worrying about the shape of the Earth. Like, I feel like there's bigger things to
Yeah.
change. There's things that I don't want to say I control, but I think there's things that like I can do for this Earth that is more important than me like exposing what the shape is. But there are
I
people
think
out there where
people just want
that's
belonging, man. People just want a club to belong to. They're lonely.
for sure. Yeah, for sure. And that that's actually like a huge part of my mission statement of like what I'm doing moving forward. I don't know if I talked with you about it, but I'm creating a new platform, and this new platform is basically like my solution to all of the problems I see with the internet and all the unfortunate, you know, I guess what I could summarize it as, like, I feel like it's unfortunate that we have so much an easy way to communicate at any time, and yet we squander that ability to communicate and collaborate with arguing and bickering and creating these
Yeah.
cults, and like just it's just such a shitty thing that we turned out this way. And now you go on X and you click on any post and it's Grok, is
It's
this
all rage
true?
bait. It's all
Grok
rage bait.
is
It's like everybody is trying to monetize emotion and just vampire attack consciousness. And I mean, if you're gonna unfuck the internet, that's a lofty goal, sir.
No, I mean, I know that I can't I don't wanna go about it as like I'm the savior trying to change things. It's just like I wanted to make I wanted to make a place where I can now do what I wanna do, and do it with the people that I believe like share that frequency, share that like we resonate on that same idea of like, sure, we get that the world is kind of a big scam, but like what are we gonna do about it? Like, what are we going to build together? What are we going to create together? Like, what business ideas can we form? How could we support each other? And I want to create my own economy where like we're all interacting and sharing our skills, products, and services with each other. Like, I think the world should consider heading in that direction soon because it's gonna be like a quote unquote "too late" moment, maybe as of next year. And I think we're seeing it
Well,
right now.
yeah, I mean, in a way, PulseChain as a community, I mean, again, not everybody's aligned, but we do believe that crypto is the answer, crypto is the way out, and people have made their little projects or their own little stores and figured out somewhat of a microeconomy within the people that are actually building and promoting and contributing. And then, of course, there's always going to be just the angry hater losers that just can't help but fall for all the bait and argue and drain their consciousness as well. But I do feel like there's some core of that, some kind of soul that's evolved in PulseChain itself.
I mean, yeah, that's great, but like if you feel like it has room for everyone to express and like it feels like it has that open forum, then that's awesome, you know? Like I think in a lot of ways like I'm happy for these quote unquote cults because they brought us together in a weird way. Like it's weird to say, but like if it wasn't for all these people that were super into XRP or super into Hex or really into Bitcoin or whatever, like we wouldn't all be having this
Yeah.
more conscious dialogue. Like that's what's so dope about it, that I honor it for what it's provided. And now it's just about like, well, look at how much has changed since the last bull run. I remember,
Yeah.
bro, I created this thing called the expansion mastermind course, and it was about mindset, health, wellness, and all the things that I talk about that are not crypto or investment based, more of like the investment in yourself um vibe. And I didn't mention AI one time in that course. And I looked at the date of when it was created, and it was because it was created before the launch of ChatGPT. And I'm just thinking now, like, holy shit, how like that one technology getting into the hands of the everyday man and what it's brought us till this very moment now, where like full blown movie productions will be using AI, you know? Like what are some of your thoughts on the way the world is heading in that regard? I would like to hear a little more about your opinion on the AI disruption.
Yeah, I'm an optimist about things, but like any tool, it's all about how you use it. You can use it to totally offload all of your critical thinking skills. And it's the whole meme of, hey, Grok, is this true? And it's like a drooling Wojak trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. I mean, you could take the idiocracy route or you could use it to your benefit. And I want to believe that the people that can actually tap into their creative passions will use AI to make beautiful stuff like we've never seen before. I mean, I'm all for making high quality. I think AI art is beautiful if it's made with good intention. It's made me laugh. It's made me really stop and say, wow, that's something that's truly creative. So I don't think, AI is a helper, right? It's not a replacement for creativity, and LLMs will never replace the human spirit. And AI can't be funny, you know what I mean? But an AI can help you decouple, and it can decentralize Hollywood, which is great. Let's get out of that weird demonic fuck fest over there. So like it's good, but it's only as good as you are able to ask it the right questions and not have blind faith in anything. um and so I guess that's my take. LLMs are not AGI. LLMs are actually quite stupid and they do hallucinate, but they're as good as they've ever been. They're only going to get better, and it's good to use them without, I guess, getting pulled in all kinds of different directions. We already see when you're doom scrolling on X, like you can see
Yeah.
everybody trying to sell you their $30 a month wrapper on top of OpenClaw that adds very minimal value, and everyone's scrambling to figure out what they should be doing with AI. But I think the question is just do what you want to do and ask the AI question after you figure out internally what you want, because it's only as good as your goal and as good as your vision. And if you can crystallize your vision, then AI is just there to help you and you pull it in as needed. You don't start with chasing the tool and then looking for a solution to a problem later, So that's what I think, I guess, so far.
Yeah, what you reminded me of with that response is it's kind of like the era when I got into online business and I was kind of looking for some way to get out of my job that I had. And it was like e-com, it was all the shiny objects, you know? And like, of course,
It's the
e-com is
stag, yeah.
like, yeah, it's like e-com, of course, is still not, it's not a shiny object. It's just when it's like being marketed by some influencer who's in like a beach with his laptop saying like you could have this too. That's where it like
Mhm.
got a little cringy, but in a lot of ways it did it did change a lot of people's lives to have that opportunity to make money in that alternative way, you know? So I feel like AI is absolutely becoming that right now, again, all over again. And that's great because it might allow people to tap into a new thing that they never even knew was a possibility for them. You know, I've definitely become more I've changed my mindset in some ways, but my long-term mindset on the world and the way it's headed, that is not budged. If anything, AI has kind of made how I feel about the future more solidified in the outcome, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to parallel the Peter Thiel thing, it's going to end up being the death of us or the ultimate freedom from. It really all relies on personal self sovereignty. If we don't take personal responsibility, we're going to get pulled into somebody else's story or somebody else's. You'll be the product. Like, how many people are just training data for AI right now without knowing it? But then again, there's people building, like, someone has built the next Hollywood replacement movie already, and I'm sure it's going to be good. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy watching it. So,
Yeah, man.
but yeah, as far as cults, communities, yeah, I do see what I like to see in crypto, and what I have seen happening is a lot of the returning back to community, returning away from cult-like behavior, because the cult-like behavior is toxic, it is dangerous, and it's good to see people more doing what they want and realizing that some people are kind of just waking up and saying, "Oh, I don't have to just follow the script of whatever. I'm a free agent and I can do whatever I want." So people trying new things and hopefully acting more with good intentions on building stuff that's different and that's helpful and that is in line with their own passions. I'm trying to focus on that and bring those people up and hang out with those kinds of people as well.
Yeah, bro. Million percent. I think the world's gonna be like thirsty for that very soon. It might not
Yeah,
know that it wants
authenticity is
those
dying
things now.
away.
Yeah, it might not know that it wants that now, but it does. Like I could feel that. And that's why like my community continues to thrive in that. And I think, yeah, biggest thing will be like protecting your attention and your focus and investing more in how to utilize your attention, because it is so fucking easy to just get sucked into the vortex of this nonsense that's going on the internet. And yeah, it's like what kind of my mission to create what I'm calling the conscious side of the internet, because I know it's there. There's so many fucking amazing people in the world, and it's just about linking up.
That's something that I think we talked about last time too, about how discernment and filtering your attention is going to be one of the great skills of the new age, right? It's something that, I mean, if you're going to teach people that, that's a very wholesome thing to teach. Um, everything. Just know that when you are scrolling, for anybody watching, like, every single thing you react to or you comment on, it was designed to get you to comment on it. It was designed to. It's like, it's not blacks and whites or women and men. It's just somebody on the other side of that screen is like in a poor country and wants to monetize your clicks, and they're getting $100 a month, and for them that's a full-time salary just for getting you pissed off at your fellow man.
Yeah, that's so true. Some people forget that like these bot accounts, these people are like literally using AI running 24/7, just spamming from 30 different accounts, all based in like, whatever, Nigeria or some shit. Like, it's
Yeah,
pretty wild, man. Like, it's pretty wild what the internet has become. And I think people will soon catch on, like the same way people have caught on to all the other things in the past. The only
yeah, they're
problem
already
is
waking up.
when people catch on to the things that they believe are real, like like the Trump conversation, that's what leads to like civil unrest opportunities. So that is one thing that I do worry about a little bit, is when people start realizing that the layoffs are a very real thing and that all these politicians are just bullshitting again, like it's the 20th time that you fell for it, and it's only
Mhm.
getting a little bit more grim. That leads to those moments, unfortunately. So I really, really hope that whatever's going on right now, as it escalates, that people like recenter themselves, because in prior situations where we were like on the brink of civil war like outcomes, we didn't really have the internet to like gas it up, you know? Like now we do. Now there's like a civil war going on inside of your mind when you go on the internet. It's a very real
People
fucking
think
thing.
people are scared to go outside because they think ICE is going to go get them. People are
Yeah.
literally terrified, and it's all to do with their magic rectangle. It has nothing to do with, I mean, if you're too scared to, and another problem is people haven't talked. Yeah,
I like
talked to
that.
any, but that's what they are, man. These little, it's like, imagine it's like trying to teach a mid-century like peasant, and he would probably just say you're staring into the looking glass, it's just war and people dying, and then all of a sudden you think the whole world's like that. And a lot of people in cities, especially what I've noticed living in a lot of different cities, is that people don't talk to others with a different worldview, or they think the world's a lot worse than it really is. And so traveling has allowed me to know that by experience. But the world's not so scary. Just find like-minded people. Now, I will let you go here soon, Waters, but would you mind giving us your doomsday scenario for PLSX before we go?
Oh yeah, you gave me the chart, right?
I did. It's in the private chat. Just wanted to wrap that up.
Yeah, one second. Let me get to that. My doomsday scenario.
Telling everybody not what they want to hear, but what they need to hear.
Yeah. Let me get to this. Just make sure I'm looking at the right thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me try to share my screen. And let me know, can you confirm that you see the chart?
I do see it. I can pull it up now if you'd like.
Yep.
There you go.
All right. Okay, well, this is very similar in a lot of ways to the one that we were looking at before. By the way, guys, what I was saying about like launch is this. Like you see, this launch lasted 6 days, so look out for that on the other project we were looking at, this PRVX or whatever, because we're approaching that kind of like first week wrap up. And a lot of the gains on these types of projects happen all there. Unfortunately, it's just the nature of like the excitement of the launch, and then it could become that. I don't know if that project has made enough to, like it hasn't even gotten close. This thing went up fucking 2000% in a week, So let me break this down step by step. You have broken a major support level that goes back to around here, not here. I'm going to draw a couple horizontal rays on the screen that I think are some important levels. But this is really the bad one right here. That's the bad one.
Felt it.
That was the bad one. The bad one right there, because what's going on is you don't put too much energy into that. Coming back to this major level, what is this? Almost 6 times, and then you have quite a correction through this, and then coming back to it and getting rejected, that's not good. So that was like, I call this the GTFO moment, when you see the spike up and then you quickly close right back down below that level. That's almost for sure going to start a continuation of a downtrend. So we see this happen all the time in crypto. It's not weird. The same thing as we always see this happen in crypto on these newer projects. First week, they do amazing. And if they're not a rug pull, they'll still have a 90+% correction. A lot of them do have a big recovery. Words of wisdom, if you see a project that launches like kind of like this PRVX thing, and it were to continue higher over the next 48 hours and then have a major correction over the next like 3-4 weeks, or maybe three or so months, if it were to recover back to highs again, treat it like this, because it could very well go like this, and that might be as good as it gets, at least until we see a return back to bullish energy in the overall crypto market, which we're clearly not in right now. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's important, because fresh projects launch all the time, and you want to look at chart structure. So buying climax, this would be a selling climax. It marks your major low that you kind of want to secure. And then over here would be, I would call it an automatic rally or automatic reaction. You just quickly get bought back up through all the levels that you were once kind of like in euphoria or greed experiencing. And then your correction now you mark off, because this gives you a very important level to base. And you can see it was clearly a base for quite some time until it wasn't. And when it wasn't, that was the GTFO moment. So that's kind of like a TA lesson in a way. And when you do finally break your selling climax lows, you go into something called a spring. With that being said, Springs are usually a good place to accumulate because they're typically the most oversold. Um, they're the most like you lose conviction, like where the communities usually give up. But the problem here is that only is for a long-term chart. And I don't think this is long enough term. This didn't even exist in the 2021 cycle, right? So we have no real like bull run to compare this to. This is trading in isolation because of when it was launched. So this to me could turn out as a spring, and then you have this thing called a test, which looks like this. You kind of fuck around the same way you did over here after a V-shaped recovery. And then if you're lucky, you have an automatic rally, and your automatic rally starts breaking some of this stuff. I am gonna go on a whim here and say, and please don't get mad, but like I don't think that's going to happen for this project. I just don't see it coming back to these levels ever again. You'd be lucky to see it break this. Based on all my experience of like charting, you'd be really lucky to see it break that. The reason why is because it kind of tried to hold, and then this swipe up to me feels like it's insiders who are aware getting out with any final bit. I doubt this is leverage. This
Yeah,
is
there's no
probably
leverage in this
exactly.
market.
So I think this is just final like insiders being like, okay, this is going to continue to dump, and that's why you have those major spikes here. If I was to pull up volume, you'd also see it. Um, but yeah, even the volume is declining over time. It's getting less and less. So yeah, I mean, this is problematic because now you're in price discovery to the downside. You if this was the true launch price, I have no idea, maybe you could confirm. But if that's the
It was
true launch,
very quickly, it was kind of manufactured. It wasn't you know, the earliest buyer I think traded like a very small amount down there and then to
mhm,
make it appear as if there's a giant green candle on the first day. I don't think when everybody
yeah,
got their coins distributed by that time, I think it was already well into that first candle, you know.
makes sense. Makes sense. Let me quickly do this. So this is promising for me. What I did right here was I know that this was really your selling climax and the level that you want to pay attention to most, but with my TA system, I always look to like what's the major support level. And that's why I marked this red. So I marked this red for a reason because I see the most touch points, I see the most data, and I see the most reaction to that level. So every time it would come back to this red line that I drew, you would have clear reaction, right? And we're not talking one time. I mean, we're talking like 4 or 5 times. So that's why I did my reverse fib pull from this level. And then I brought it up to here just because I never trust shit in the first week. First week price
Right.
action, similar to what you just said moments ago. It's like I don't trust it. It's
Exactly.
always just bullshit. So I feel like the way I just pulled this fib would be considered a little bit more like advanced level because when people are being taught fibs, they're always being taught swing high to swing low. Okay. But that doesn't fucking matter. Okay. What matters most is data. So even this would not be my favorite, it would be more like that right there. So we're just kind of yeah, picking through some, we're kind of what's the term they use here? I'm splitting hairs. So this is for me a good sign that we could be stalling out here. That doesn't mean that this is the ultimate low level. We could definitely chop around, but still, like we have very fresh chart. Yeah. I just don't think that these projects will come back up here until we see all of the alts do well again. So, yes, this project can come here again, but guys, understand that requires the whole crypto market to be horny again, and we're just not there. Everyone hates this market right now except for I don't want to say the true believers, but like these sort of things are happening when you see this price action, by the way, it's happening because confidence is not there, you know?
Yep.
This is occurring because everyone who was like, "Oh, okay, I'll hold, I'll deal with it. Okay, it's great. Oh, we're happy again. Oh, no." You get here and then you just start saying, "Fuck it," you know? It's
Yeah.
just the give up vibe. And that's why I'll say that is why I don't feel it's coming up here again, is because when you have a real spring is volume injected in. There is no volume here. Like, you could barely see it. It's just these little kind of blips. But over here was volume. Over here was volume. Over here was volume. So I'm not seeing any volume come in on this sell off, which just means it's perpetual one person leaving the building at a time. That kind of vibe. If it was a
Yeah.
huge volume injection during the sell off, then I would go, ooh, okay, let's get ready for a reversal. Let's get ready because that's the difference. I can maybe
Mhm.
show you what I mean by that on the Bitcoin or like on another chart really quick so that people can have a compare, like understand what the hell I'm talking about. One
Mhm.
second, because volume is
Well,
a
you are
little
right to say.
complicated. Sorry.
Yeah. You are right to say that it is a lot of just true believers left. That's the vibe I get as well. I mean, there's always been a core group of believers. I'm one of them. I'm holding very long term, more than most people can imagine. But we see people capitulating and then getting angry and throwing a tantrum on their way out. One by one is what we've been seeing in the past year or so.
Right. Yeah. Um, just to quickly show people, this is where Bitcoin's local low is, and look at the volume that came in. Okay. Over here,
Yeah.
this is the same story. At Bitcoin's major correction over here, we had a huge volume spike. Over
Yeah.
here on this correction, huge volume spike. And then the COVID crash is the best example because look at that fucking volume that came in. Just
Right.
major. So there's action happening. While the chart that we were just looking at, and that again, like I don't want to sound like I'm killing the vibe, but it was the total opposite. It's just been it's been less and less volume over time, and it's sustaining its low volume. And then when it takes another leg down, the volume also sustains. Those are like basic TA principles that I think will help people understand. People are not like panic selling anymore. They're frustratedly like getting rid of it and leaving behind the whole thing. It's
Yeah.
happening slowly and there's no volume. Um yeah, man, like I wish I could say good news, but like I feel like I've been just coming on here every time and I'm always just like not able to leave you with good news. And it
Well, at
sucks
this
because I,
point, it
I
makes
hate to
more
be that
sense.
guy.
At this point, I'm much more okay with it. It's like
Okay.
it's been so obvious that people are going to capitulate, and we need to find that bottom somewhere. I'm so used to seeing people angry and depressed and screaming on their way out, saying this whole thing's a scam. Look, I get that crypto is frustrating. I'm thinking on a longer term time scale than I think a lot of other people. I'm going to be here whenever the liquidity rotates back in, and so if Bitcoin gets a little pump in this next quarter here, that's great. Maybe we get a relief rally, and if you really do want to exit, you're done with crypto. Maybe keep an eye out for the near term correction, mean reversion, in let's say HEX or PulseX, and then just leave. If you don't believe and you don't want to be here long term, you might get a relief rally. It's what it sounds
Do
like.
do you yourself plan on being in this kind of ecosystem long term?
Yes.
And why? Like why Hex?
Well, I believe in the people behind it. I believe that there is a critical mass of people, and I also believe that it's the ideals of the cypherpunk vision, the decentralization, the not compromising, not selling out. It's all done in a way where we're not begging VCs for money. We're not uh, giving our power back to middlemen. We remember the reason that crypto was invented, and it's got a lot of price potential in terms of just being low liquidity on purpose. I also think the billionaire founder understands this as well, and like we've seen in the past, when he does inject liquidity, it can cause things to turn around pretty quickly as well.
All right. I hope when we talk again that it'll be a little bit more positive.
What are you thinking in general? Like alt season is a term that most people don't think aren't most people think is not even going to happen again in the typical sense. It clearly didn't happen this go around in the
Yeah.
typical sense. Do you think there's
Yeah, I
going to
mean,
be a good time?
I don't think that alt season is going to be the same moving forward, and I'm still wrapping my head around like what how I'm going to reformulate my thesis because obviously alt season is not my theory. It's not like it's like it's anyone who's in crypto hears it and we all just agree. It's like the 4-year cycle. that is kind of like the meme of the year, right? So I have to change my own perspective on it because yes, the 4-year cycle for Bitcoin, it's technically playing out like it has, which is wild. But I don't think it's gonna be this bull. I don't think the bear market's gonna go the same way. I think a lot of people are anticipating that Bitcoin's gonna bottom in October of this year with much lower prices than today. I don't personally think that's the case. But the idea behind alt season, I also think is adjusting. And I think this has a lot to do with the changes in Bitcoin by the institutions getting involved. And also like where governments are starting to park their money too. Obviously, there's a lot more instruments too for crypto to play the game of, all of this other shit. And then we have betting markets. So I don't want to complicate everybody's I don't want to complicate things right now. I think betting markets, like the poly market thing, will take alt season away from crypto forever.
Hmm.
So I'm not saying
It,
get mad at people, but like when you can bet on like what color tie Trump is gonna wear and like a fucking why get into crypto? Because you're just able to take your gambling addiction over to a place that like served you better. Like, and it was more what crypto did well on in 2021, right? It was just
yeah.
like, let's launch Elon dildo Doge with hat coin. And it was just that was the coin that did well. And it did well for the moment. And that's kind of today where it's like, is Timothy Chalamet gonna get mad at the Oscars and they're betting on that? It's dumb. It's literally silly, but I think that unfortunately is where my thesis is altering and how I'm gonna change my perspective on what alt season could be in the future. But I think that hijacked it a lot. Those two big reasons. One is the government institutional involvement, and then the second is the betting markets.
I agree. And also even launch pads to a degree, pumped out fun was kind of a precursor to what's now, just
Mhm.
betting on anything. And it's gambling, and leverage trading has always been underlying kind of cancer, in my opinion, too. A lot of newbies don't
Sure.
understand that leverage trading is very dangerous. I hope that communities with real products and good marketing and real believers and good founders will start to decouple. But it sounds like there's alt season in the sense of everything pumping in unison. Clearly didn't play out this time around and might not be something to expect in general. Although I'm still very bullish on the fact that we have the potential to market our bags and speak reality into existence. And so for
Yeah,
my
no,
little
I mean,
ecosystem, I'm
don't
going to
get me
try.
wrong. I think projects based on their chart can do very well. Like, for example, I think XRP in the next time we have price appreciation for Bitcoin will probably go up to like the $8 to $12 range. I do very much believe on that based on the chart, right? So I don't believe in that based on anything else but what I'm seeing in these charts. And the same thing goes for any other chart that I look at. So I've learned a lot from this last cycle, and now that I'm getting closer and closer to like wrapping up my thesis on the dot-com bubble to like the great financial crisis and how those have like a relationship with what we're experiencing here today with cryptocurrency, and then also the regulations that came from that and the
Yeah.
changes that came on the world stage from that. Because of this, the housing market is about to be tokenized. We're about to see everything change in that way, and rent is becoming, like, impossible for people. Like, we're gonna see a restructure. So I think crypto fits into that, and when I'm closer to figuring out my thesis, I'll put it into a presentation, and it will include the alt season concept. But I think, like, to summarize my thoughts, and, maybe people will think I'm wrong here, but I think they'll only think I'm wrong because they want alt season. And what I think is dumb is like, don't want alt season. Just position yourself in projects that you've done your research on, you believe in, and you can see price appreciation as possible for that project. Because alt season, as we once experienced it, only happened because of all the other corruption and nonsense that was happening in the market as well. Like with what FTX was doing and Terra, like there was a lot of bad actors. And when there's no real money and it's all just being pumped, it's all just being kind of like it's a facade. So
Yeah.
our last crazy alt season was not happening because of real world use case and like people actually using the blockchain technology behind it, the underlining technology. They were purely just in it for the gambling. And that's why I
Yeah.
worry about the alt season theory moving forward, and the fact that we didn't get it this time. It's not shocking me anymore, and I think Trump actually was part of the ritual. So him launching a meme coin was absolutely a ritual. I almost am certain that he had no say in that. He was just
Yeah.
told he had to do that. He did it, and it worked for the scheme that they had pulled. And I remember within the 24 hours of that happening, I told everyone, "This is a rug pull," and people were mad at me because they're patriots and they believe in Trump. And, like, look
Yeah.
at it today. When you pull up that chart,
It's wrecked. Yeah.
it's wreck and, like, now people are trying to do the same thing with World Liberty Financial, and I'm like, "You guys need to wake the fuck up. This is all bullshit. Stop believing in this man and start believing in yourself. Start believing in your own family." People care more about this motherfucker than they care about their own children. It's sick. It's
That is
fucking
pretty
weird.
fucked up, man. I
It's
know.
fucking weird. Like, I've literally seen people defend him more than they defend their own families. So, I'm not trying to get emotional. I'm just trying to teach people, like, recenter your mindset moving forward, because this is just the start, right? Like, if I said this stuff 2 years ago and now we're looking at it unfold today, it's because I was able to navigate it without picking a side. And I haven't changed my posture. So I think crypto is here to stay. I think there are projects that will do well moving forward. I think we will have alt season like gains in particular projects, but the idea of a holistic, like, everything go up moment,
Yeah. Well, there's
very, very
38 million
difficult.
tokens. There's simply just too much of everything, and not enough attention. Right now, it's about the finite amount of attention. So I'm trying to create, a vortex of that limited bandwidth within my ecosystem, and other communities I think that are doing that will succeed. But like you said, I mean, we've only had what, 2 alt seasons, really, maybe kind of 3. We've only had
Yep,
three to 4 crypto cycles, and if you look at cycles as data points, like 3 data points is barely enough to project anything going forward. So I like that you look at
precisely.
cycles within cycles. I like that you look at unconventional stuff. Gives people, statistically significant unconventional stuff. And I think it's good with your healthy level of detachment to hopefully teach the viewers to take that step back and not get so emotional, not let it define their life. But that crypto is here to stay, and we're all trying to work towards being on the right side of history. And you're either working towards it, or you're just holding and waiting, or why are you even here? You don't have to be here. So it's good to know that.
For sure, man. Well, it was great to connect with you. It was great to have an open-minded conversation and take this into so many different directions. And I appreciate you. And let's definitely reconnect again soon.
Thanks, Waters. See you guys on the next one.
Yeah, man. Much love. Take care.